Welcome, everyone. We are going to begin the webinar on SATA Filter 500 series and SATA Filter 200 series. I'm Melissa Joels with RDA Impact. Tony Larimar, Director of Sales and Marketing for Dan Company, is your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes. We are recording it and we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and we will answer them during the presentation. Now I'll turn it over to Tony.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. We're going to talk about SATA filtration. So I'm going to switch. So hopefully this makes it a little easier for you to see this PowerPoint. We've got quite a bit to cover regarding filtration, more than you probably ever thought there would be, but definitely some good details that we want to make sure you guys understand a couple things. Along with filtration, of course, there's breathing equipment, which means that care has to be taken throughout the process of using any filtration to do the proper maintenance. So we're going to talk about what that requires also. SATA filters and breathing equipment need to be a priority at the shops for a lot of reasons. Perfect paint jobs, first of all, need clean air. First, we have a couple of options. We have the Filter 500, which is our newer release. It's been released for about a year and a half. We also have our SATA Filter 200, which is a lower CFM version that we'll talk about. We have multiple sub options, and that by sub options I mean we can do this in single stage, dual stage, triple stage, with or without regulation, so we can make it fit whatever the need is at the specific shops you're looking at. We also offer our full line of Dan aluminum airline piping and regulators, making sure that the shops have breathing air, quality air for painting as well, so that their paint jobs turn out clean. Once they're placed in the shop, though, as I mentioned at first, it really is important that care is taken to make sure people maintain their filters as they should be, to ensure that they get clean, dry air. And with that clean air, breathing air quality, the filter maintenance on these is really pretty low, but we just need to make sure that they take care to do that. Now we add in items like the AirVision 5000, the AirVision 2000, paint suits. Painters really have all that they need to maintain a clean and safe paint environment for all their using all of today's paint products. We'll start with looking at the filtration. We need filtration because to get good paint jobs, obviously the main source of that energy in our shops is air. And we need that to be, as you can see on this slide, free from dust, dirt, debris, silicone. And we hear the word silicone, and many times we think of the guys in the detail shop that might be using a product that could be a contaminant, tire shine, all kinds of different items that could be a contamination problem. But a lot of the silicone that we're talking about is the silica gel that's going right into the end of the last stage on many filters out there. That is silica gel that breaks down and it swells when it gets wet, pops and cracks and leaves particles. And it's the last stage, and that ends up blowing through into your paint jobs. And so we'll talk about that. We need air to be clean and dry, free from not just water. Humidity is one thing, and a lot of talk happens about having extremely dry air. Many cases it can be overemphasized as far as the dryness, but where we really need to take a look also is at the oil vapors that are passed on, whether it's oil in droplet size or all the way down to oil vapor, needs to be cleaned up, particularly for breathing. And what shows more telltale signs is when we're using it in a waterborne situation where we could have oil that's getting past the filter in a vapor form, blows out of your spray gun onto a panel, and you spray your next coat of waterborne base, and the water doesn't get fish eyes like it does in solvent, where a painter could back up and maybe cheat and try and dry spray a little bit and maybe get rid of some of the sins. Instead, with water, when you get a contaminant like an oil vapor, it ends up getting on the surface, floats to the top. The next layer tries to run away or separate itself from that contamination, and you end up what looks like a real blotchy area in a paint job. And so these filters are designed to help eliminate that as well. The next one is we need constant airflow, and if we have sufficient volume, we will have constant airflow. And in both these cases, the SATA 500 series filter that we're going to talk about first has 136 CFM capabilities with 90 pounds of line pressure going into them. The 200 series filter is 70 CFM. And so we have very, very high amount of CFM in comparison to the others that are on the market that most have in that 25 to max 50 range. They even put that in the name of their products. So if you have constant airflow, you have sufficient pressure. This is a slide that shows what it looks like when you get silica wet. That bottom right, you see the big black arrow. When you take some of that, put it in an RPS cup, add just a teaspoon of water to that, put a quarter inch of that on the bottom of a cup and put a teaspoon of water in there. It sounds like pop rocks going off inside that cup. And as that swells, it expands and it pops and breaks, and it gets you particulates that are in the last stage on most of those filters that end up right into your paint work. And many times painters will be looking at a job and they may see what looks like pinholes and blaming it on solvent pop or pinholes or something. When you magnify that with a lens, you'll see a tiny little shiny speck or white speck appearing in there that is actually silica contamination that you've put in there yourself as the shop. Another reason that we don't use desiccant media in our filters is because of all of these companies that are listed here, whether it's RTI, whether it's the DAD 500 from DeVilbiss or the Cam Airs, Tsunami, they all list that using a silica gel is a carcinogen, a known carcinogen, and it is something that you cannot breathe. So you can't use breathing hoods off of those filters. So not only do they not necessarily give you the cleanest air because of the silica they're putting into paint jobs, it's also not breathable air. This is another issue that we see with a very well-known filter, the DAD 500. It has a foam liner around one of their filter cartridges that when it gets oil and water in it, it starts to break down. And as that breaks down, you can see on the right-hand photo some of the debris that can be passed on through the filter into your paint work. We do have a couple things that are pretty simple. As a distributor, your tech reps can carry one of these. It's a SATA air tester that is a specially coated mirror. And the coating on this mirror helps to allow things to condense quicker. So you can aim a spray gun or a blowgun right at this, put 20, 25 PSI, 29 pounds, whatever you spray at, right at this mirror surface, and you're gonna see a fog on there if it's humidity. You'll see an oil residue that forms on it if there's oil in the lines, but it's a pretty quick way to take a look in a situation if there could be a possibility for air contamination. So a simple way to take a look without having to have test wafers, and of course those things are available, but this may be a simpler way to do quick checks periodically to make sure the airlines in all your shops are clean. While we're talking about air volume, I just want to mention something about these couplers and fittings. The one on the left shows a picture of a SATA, the lower left corner shows a picture of the SATA coupler next to just a standard Milton, and you can see the whole difference in that. The other thing I want you to look at is on the right-hand side, lower right-hand corner, you can see a seal. There's a white seal down inside these fittings, which make it extremely nice because you don't have to put thread tape on. And many times in our repair stations, some of the biggest problems we see with guns are having thread tape inside an air passage, and it collects in the air micrometer, not allowing air to flow properly, or it collects in the fan control, changing completely the way a gun sprays. And we pull those out and we find pieces of Teflon tape that maybe got wrapped over the end of a thread when they screwed it on. This eliminates the need for that. You can really put them on hand tight and they're not going to leak. Of course, we would recommend tighten them with a wrench, make sure that you have them secure, but it's a good way to get high flow air through a fitting. And the SATA couplers are also very, very short in dimension, so that high flow air, but very short, so there's not so much length hanging off the bottom of your spray gun that ruins the ergonomics. And it certainly makes it easier having that short coupler on the bottom of your gun, running maybe atom gauges in the back of a gun or a digital gun, so that you don't have all that regulator and things hanging off the bottom of your spray gun for comfort. Both are high quality. One's brass, the other is nickel plated, so they're corrosion resistant, certainly last a long time. Hoses that you use. When we take a look at what hoses should we be using in the booth, this PrimaFlex hose we've had for a long time. It's been NIOSH approved for both the Vision 2000 and the Vision 5000 for the hoods. It is NIOSH approved because of its non-wicking construction, so that it doesn't allow any contaminants to wick through the hose that are on the floor. We get into solvent shops where many people still wet their floors down to keep dust down. That can create problems with some of the hoses that are out there that are don't have the non-wicking capability. Also, these are non-gassing hoses, so they don't introduce harmful gases into the breathing lines. They've been approved for the breathing industry as well as use in food industry, where they have maybe saws and different equipment that runs on air, in pneumatics in big factories where they do food processing. So definitely can keep things cleaner for your breathing air. So for breathing or for painting, these are a great option for keeping things clean. We have a couple things here that I want to feature before we dive deeper into the filters, but these can help you drastically before you even get to your filter. We have drops. On these SATA filters, we have auto drain valves. And in the auto drain valve, it has a float system inside that when it gets contaminants or moisture, fill that up, it purges. So we have that on the left in this aluminum block that's just got a 1/2-inch pipe thread. So you can put that anywhere in the shop. And I would suggest before it gets to your paint booth, if you've got a low spot where you can connect a 1/2-inch pipe, drop down, screw this on the bottom, you have an auto drain valve all the time, so you're not having to remember or rely on someone draining it manually. That can help a great deal in many cases where they just may have a tank or something nearby the booth, and then after that tank, put a low spot in for a drain. So anything that gets past that, or even before the tank, put it into a low spot, put a drop with an auto drain, and it doesn't need electricity in that case, so you can put it in an explosion-proof area. The one on the right, the 640550, is an electric drain valve that would normally be placed on the bottom of your compressor tank or on your compressor, but definitely on your storage tank. It's got either a 1/4 inch, 3/8, or 1/2 inch bung on the bottom. You can choose which one you want. But with an adapter, you can screw that into the bung on the bottom of the compressor and plug it into a power source. It has two gauges on this, or two valves on this. One records how long you want it to purge. So if you want it to purge from 1/2 second up to 5 seconds, you can adjust that knob. You also have a second knob that allows you to adjust from 10 minutes up, or 5 minutes up to about an hour between purges. So I know here in our paint booth, we have it wired in because we have a large storage tank on the back side of the booth. That large storage tank, with this on the bottom, we plumbed the electrical into an outlet that was wired in line with our booth lights. So when our paint booth is on, as soon as you flip the switch or the booth lights come on, it purges for 2 seconds, and then every 40 minutes it purges after that. And that works great for keeping our tank completely dry. We can run classes in this booth here in the training center and have people in there for 2 or 3 hours running 6 Vision hoods at a time, multiple spray guns, and not have any issues with moisture or contaminants being entering, because it's all drained before it gets there. So definitely two nice options. And this electric one, I believe that price on that is somewhere around retail, around $179, $180. So it's a pretty affordable piece that should be on anybody that has a compressed air system tank. The 584 filter has some big benefits. Number one, they optimize the flow. On the right-hand side, you can see this water cyclone that's inside the first stage, and I'll show you that in just a moment, was optimized on this to give us more constant airflow than even our previous versions, which are the 484 or even the 284 that we still sell. By optimizing this cyclone, it keeps the air at a constant flow rate, where when we look on the screen, the one on your left, you can see where the energy when it first came in was very fast coming into that water cyclone, which throws the water and particulates to the outside. Then it would slow down in the middle, and then it sped up as it left, and it caused a little disturbance in the air. So they found with a smoother design, with the turns all at the top, running into this water cyclone, it helped to keep a much more even airflow through the filters, which gives us a much more efficient filtration ability and a more constant airflow. When we look at this filter, you'll notice that yellow cyclone device is the one I was just talking about. The second stage is a fine filter. Now this fine filter is a change from the one for the 200 or the 400 series in that it's got a much higher surface area. So on the one on the left, the first stage, that yellow cyclone rotates the air, throws it to the outside. It then goes to the inside of the filter, and I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to switch to a different view. So hopefully this looks a little larger. But when we see here, these just turn off with like just about an eighth of a turn twist with a bayonet style at the top. And this bayonet style water cyclone is what goes inside this filter cartridge, or filter, yeah, inside the canister. There's a nut at the bottom that comes out, and there's a sintered bronze element. We've always had this in the 200 and the 400. This is the same exact one. It's a 5-micron filter in this first stage. All of the particulates collect on the outside. So once every 6 months, when we do maintenance on this filter, this can be cleaned. So you can clean it with a soft brush and acetone or lacquer thinner, depending on what area you're working in, and blow it out from the inside out. You wash this yellow portion with soapy water or rinse it and dry it and put this back together. There's a seal at the top inside that sits against, and there's a seal on this black nut that when I tighten this down, now it's airflow. When it comes around, it rotates around the outside, dumps your debris from the auto drain, and it goes back through this, and the dirt or debris has to collect on the outside of this first stage on the sintered element inside. The rest of it's drained away through the float system, and it's hard to see on this camera, but these are a polished aluminum, so they're very smooth surface, so we're not using metal, steel, so we're not getting iron oxide, we're not getting corrosion and rust, and these are not welding themselves together to your filter, so very easy to change. They drop in a bayonet style, so always they drop in the same position, so the airflow isn't changed because they're not threaded in, and they're not threaded into the filter at different tensions. So always we get the same airflow. That's another advantage now on this system. So then when I showed you in that picture on here, we'll go with the second stage, which is white with a blue ring on the bottom. This is the fine filter. So when this comes off, again, really simple to remove, but this is a filter that filters down to 0.001 microns. You'll see some filters out there that are only 1 micron filters. You'll see some that even go to 0.1. This one is 10 times finer than even the finest one out there and goes down to 0.01 microns. So a very clean source. Debris collects on the inside of this, and airflow goes out through it to go on to the next stage. So on that filter, what's nice about it is there is inside this filter, the 500 filter, there's a large rubber sealing surface in there. So with these new filter elements in the 500 series, there's no small O-rings to change, none of that. So it's very, very easy. I literally take the cellophane wrapper off of this, drop it back into here, and I'll show you in a minute when I put it back on how simple that is to place back on the filter, but very, very simple. The third stage is the carbon element, if we choose to go to that, and I'll back up and talk about that in a minute, but while I have it apart, I want to show this to you. So the carbon now has changed. So it used to be, it was an encapsulated carbon particles inside of a filter membrane. Now, just like the first stage was a sintered bronze element, this is a sintered carbon element that has a huge surface area. But what this has done is it improved the lifespan of the carbon. Instead of every 3 months having to change it on a 200 series or a 400 series previously, this one is changed only once every 6 months. So it definitely, this carbon filter costs a little more to buy, but it's only changed half as often. So it ends up being to do a full year maintenance on the 500 series filter is about 10% less than it is to do that on a 200 or a 400 series filter. So for me, the ease of maintenance is a reason that I would choose the 500 series. Maybe in cases where before I would have put in a 200. So to show you how easy this is to put back together, I'm just going to go up here. You'll notice there's a black line on this filter canister. The carbon is black, the filter, it has black color to it. And then on the top of this, it's also color coded. So there's a black dot over the carbon, there's a blue dot over the fine filter, and yellow over the yellow cyclone canister. So when we put this back together, it's just this simple. It just presses back in. You just find where it lines up, and you'll feel it. So you have a haptic assurance that it's closed, and you have an acoustic sound that you can hear, so you know they're connected correctly. Just drops in. Oops, let me get that. Get in the right pin position. There we go. And that, when that clicks, you can hear it. And the third one, whoops, I put that in the wrong stage. Sorry. So follow the yellow, sorry. So the blue one, when that drops in, and it clicks, and the yellow one goes on this side, and we're connected. So now it's back together. It's simpler. There's no threads. It's a pretty quick and easy filter change. Once every 6 months is all that requires. Okay, again, as we, this filter is designed for air to come in from the left side. So when we look at that from the left-hand side, we even put an adapter inside to make it real easy, so that you don't accidentally just take a pipe fitting or nipple and screw it in too far, shutting off airflow. This adapter that's in there comes with a white sealing element already on it. So no thread tape, nothing needed. You just tighten this into the threads, and then you can use whatever plumbing connection that's just 1/2 inch pipe thread in or out of this. But airflow has to go from the left side to the right side. Now the nice part is with this, it is reversible. And so the bracket that these filters mount to on the bottom side of each stage, there's 2 small screws that just can be Allen screws that pop out. You take those screws out for each of the 3 canisters, and you can remove the canisters from the bracket. We spin the bracket around to the front of the filter, and the gauge comes off the front, can be switched to the back, and it could be reversed. So when you look in our catalog, there's a part number for the filter, and then there's a part number for one with an R on it, just says R, where you just let us know if you've got one because of where the filter is going to mount in your booth, it won't connect properly to an airline and go the right way through it because of the corner of the booth it's in. You can reverse it right on site, takes about 10 minutes, or you can let us know, we can reverse one for you before we even ship it out. So that's a nice feature that it reverses in that bracket. Because now we've had for a long time these filter timers, and on this filter, because all 3 of the maintenance schedule, cleaning, and replacing the second 2 canisters, we only need 1 filter timer now. So that filter timer does come with each of the cartridges, but you just slide it in, and you'll notice on the screen you can see a button right under the SATA logo. You press that button, it starts a timer that lasts 6 months, and they're really pretty accurate within just a day or two either side of 6 months, but it lets you know when that gets fully to the top that there's maintenance needed and it's time to replace your cartridges. On the again, on the 500, it's just those just one filter timer. We have here on this page a series of video links. One thing that is nice is you can go, as you can see at the bottom, if you go to youtube.com and in the search bar at the top, type in SATA by Dan Am. If you type SATA by Dan Am, and even right behind that, you can type in filter 500 or 500 filter or filter. you'll find all of our videos, and these are the ones that are there. There's one that's just kind of a teaser video if somebody wants to see what the Filter 500 is. There's one on functionality that shows how it works, and it kind of goes through the flow process, and it's an animated one that shows how air flow goes through this. There's one on the maintenance of it. There's a video in there. There's one if you want to retrofit it from a 2-stage, which I'll talk about here in just a second, to a 3-stage. We can add blocks on the end for extra manifolds. There's one on changing the airflow, how to reverse the filter, installation of it. We can actually change the gauge and put an Atom 2 dock in that, so you can snap a digital gauge on, check your pressure digitally, and then put that gauge on your spray gun and keep painting. Or there's one at the end, the last video, and that was one that we did at Dan Am that kind of encompasses everything in one. So those are good benefits to see. This is a little better picture of that fitting that I was telling you about with the seal on it to go into the inlet. Or we have in our Dan Am airline, we have a fitting that screws directly in, and then it's just push to connect after that to plumb it. So we do have that as an option. Here's why I wanted to show you this little piece is when you look inside that filter in that center picture, you'll see, first of all, there's a big rubber seal around the outside edge. That's something that you should always just look at. Feel in there. You can feel that it hasn't pulled down or loosened a filter, but we haven't seen them do that yet. But I just like to do that when I take the canister off, is check it. What you'll see in the right-hand photo where we see threads going in, that would be without having this nipple in the end of the filter. That just, someone took a pipe thread and just screwed it all the way in. Well, now obviously they've shut off airflow. So before you put the canisters in, and when you have those canisters off, the wall bracket is absolutely exposed. All the holes are there. You can screw your pipe fitting in it and look at it, look up inside like this and see that it's not screwed in too far. And then it screws to the wall, and then you put your canisters on. So that's a nice advantage with this. Now, on this 500 series filter, we're going to look at the air volume. So the benefit of this, you'll see in the upper side above the 500 series, where now it's 135 CFM at 87. It's 136 at 90, just for math. The max air inlet and output of the 500 series filter is 15 bar, which is 218 PSI, which is certainly more than most of our shops have or need. On the other side, we have the 200 series filter, the 72 CFM filter. That one max air inlet's 145 and 10 bar. When we look at how do we know which filter, if we base it just on air volume, the 500 series filter, if you take an HVLP spray gun, they're 15 CFM, and Air Vision hood, let's say from 6 to 15, but even if you say 10 as the number, if they're not running an air cooler or anything on it, wide open, it's 10 CFMs usually the average. You can throw an air cooler on there of 6 CFM, averaging 30 CFM per technician. The 500 series filter can handle over four techs off of one. So we could put one filter in if it's plumbed correctly and go to a couple of spray booths or a prep deck and a spray booth and run 2 painters in each. So we do have a very high volume of air with that filter. The one on the other side, the 200 series filter at 70 CFM, we'll do two techs. And so typically, if you've got less than a 15 horse compressor, you could get away with the 200 series version. But with that one, you've got the threaded canisters you have to deal with, the threaded fittings, changing O-rings, some other things that might weigh into that, and the overall cost of filter replacements is a little higher to do the old style than it is with the new one, simply because we're only changing this carbon every 6 months instead of every 4 times a year. These are some of the different options. You'll notice on the lower right side, we have the 564 filter. That 564 filter is a carbon add-on. And where that may be necessary is if you notice the filter next to that, the 544, we have 2 versions, one with a regulator and a 2-port manifold, and one just as a line filter. Because what we're seeing more and more, and what we recommend more and more, is don't put your filter in the booth. Put your filters outside the booth and just run a regulator inside. And for that reason, we can run the regulator outside the booth, or the filter outside the booth, keeping it clean, easy to access, put it on a place where it's easy to reach. and then just pipe through, stem through the booth inside for a regulator. If you want to have the filter hanging in the booth, or if you need regulation at a point out in the open shop, then we do have it as a 2-stage. Now that 2-stage has your auto water drain, oil coalescer, and it has your fine filter all the way down to 0.01 micron. So that's 99.998% clean air. But to breathe that air, you would need to wear a carbon unit on your belt unit, wear a carbon filter on your belt unit. If you're spraying solvent and you're breathing the air, but you only have 1 or 2 techs, and you want to change that carbon every 3 months on their belt, you can certainly do that and buy a 2-stage. However, if you switch to waterborne, we want that carbon because we need it to remove the oil all the way down to vapor form. And in that carbon, it goes all the way down to 0.005 micron, and it removes oil all the way down to vapor form. So we're not getting contaminants for paint jobs in water. However, the breathing side of that, what's nice about that now is instead of having to wear a larger belt unit that has carbon inside of it, I can get away with just wearing a small regulator. It just has the adjustment knob on it. And so if you have multiple painters, I would say more than 2, definitely, it doesn't make sense to change cartridges on your waist belt every 3 months for each painter when you could just have it on the wall and only change it 1 time every 6 months. So that's the options that we have. You'll also see the lower left corner of that slide. It shows the 524 filter. And that 524 is just this first stage with a regulator on it. And you could have that out in the open shop if you want to run that for just keeping air tools semi-clean down to 5 micron with an auto drain valve. That would be for that. So running DAs, running grinding tools and things like that out in the open shop to help keep things cleaner, we have that option. Up above, we have the 3-stage, and either with the regulator on, as you can see on the demo stand, you get it without, it comes without the stand, of course. But as a tech, if you're going into a shop and you want to make sure that for the demo that you're going in to do, or the paint work you're going to go in and try, you want to go in there with clean air. So we have a hose we call a part number Z344 hose, and that hose is a 6-foot long hose that's 1/2 inch diameter that comes with a big fitting that screws into the end of the inlet, and it's got a coupler on a hose that snaps in, and then on the other end it has a high flow coupler, or a high flow fitting, so that you can just plug into their high flow fitting on the wall and have air supply here. If they don't have a high flow fitting on their filter, it comes on that fitting on the end of that hose. It comes with a coupler that you could change the one at the shop so that you can run all of your air through this. It has 2-port manifold on it. It'll have 2 couplers on it so that you can run air for a breathing hood and for a spray gun and know that it's clean when you go in to do the demo. We also have this one as a line filter, as you can see in that photograph in the center. That 584 line filter is great for plumbing inline. Many times when we do a new shop, we'll put aluminum air lines in. We'll plumb from the compressor through this filtration and then into the airlines. And now anywhere in that shop, I can plug in and have that clean air down to 0.005 micron with the carbon. So super clean. We do have, if for whatever reason you buy a line filter and you do want to have just a gauge on it so you know what your line pressure is, that piece on the right hand side is a manifold that also has a port on it. There's 2 1/4-inch ports. One is to plug in a gauge on top if you'd like, and the one on the bottom or top, either way, you can hook up the fitting that comes with our CO monitor, the X767, and then can thread right into that if you have a line filter. If you don't have a line filter and you've bought this 500 with a regulator on it, on the back side of the manifold behind the fittings, there is a port right there to plug your CO monitor in also to make that pretty simple connection. The 200 series has all of the benefits of being modular as well. So you can buy it in a 2-stage, a 3-stage, you can get it as a line filter, you can get it as a filter with regulation. In this one, you'll notice it's got more gauges on the top, and that's simply because we want to check loss of pressure, and it mostly has to do with the cyclone device and stuff that's in this. We want to make sure that if we're losing air pressure through that, you can see it on the two gauges. So the first one is the pressure coming out of that first stage and going into the second, and the second one shows the air pressure coming out of that. When those things get where they're about a 5-pound difference in those two gauges, then it typically is time to change those cartridges, and that's what that is for. But in both cases where we talked about running a line filter, whether it's a 2-stage or a 3-stage, we do have another option. We have the one that you see in this picture is a 200 series regulator. It's a 70 CFM regulator. But we have a couple of options for regulators, and the one I really want you to look at is on the bottom center. That part number 675652 is a Dan-Am regulator. It has a high flow body, a real easy to turn regulator knob that you can click down and lock. Real easy to read gauges. It comes with a 2-port manifold, a mounting bracket, high flow couplers, high flow fittings plugged into it, and it's got a retail price of like $179. So it's a great deal for that Dan-Am regulator, and so that's what we would recommend putting at the point of use. So going back, taking a look at either the 2-stage 282 inline filter or a 2-stage or a 3-stage in the 500 series filter, you have a very, very economical regulator that you can put on the end to make sure that you have enough air volume to run multiple painters off of it. When we look at the cost, on the top is the filter maintenance on the 200 series. This is at list price. You'll see the fine filter, the 81810, is twice a year. That's every 6 months on the 200 or the 400 series filter. List price of $285, so it's $570 for that. And when you take 4 times the 335 carbon charcoal filter, it's $1340. So annual cost to the shop of $1,910 to maintain that filter perfectly. When we go down to the filters below, because we cut the times in half on the activated charcoal, we're looking at a total of $1,720. So it's a 10% savings on annual maintenance. So for me, there's a difference in price, obviously, from the 500 to the 200, but I think it makes up for itself just in the maintenance and the time you're going to save. I would probably look to putting in more of the 500 series than I would the 200. The 200 is there. If we need a price point filtration that gives you clean air all the way down to 0.005 micron, you can do that. It just takes a little more maintenance time to maintain that, and it only does 70 CFM on that 200 series. We discontinued the 484 and the 400 series, so we don't sell those anymore, but obviously we have all the parts and components, and that 400 and the 200 use the same filter cartridges. Couple things I do want to show you. You're going to see a lot of marketing coming out on this new Jet Black series, and in this Jet Black series, we have it in a mini jet 4400, and that's only available in a 1.2, or we have it in all 4 of the part numbers for what normally is a blue solve gun. Show you here a little more of the marketing, the ads you're going to see. You'll see on this chart at the bottom, there's 4 part numbers in the Jet B Solve 1500. There's 4 part numbers there, and there's only 1 part number. It's in the 1.2 HVLP on the mini jet. So that's an option right now. List price on the gun is $20 more than the blue guns or the normal mini jet. So the normal mini is $575, and this one is $595, and the normal solve gun is $675, and this one's $595, or sorry, yeah, $595 or $695, sorry. So it's 20 more than the regular version. They look great, they feel great, they clean, they're durable, just a real good piece. We have 500 of each in stock, actually 500 of the 1500s, and we have 400 of the mini jets in stock. As we introduced them at SEMA, that number is dropping, so if you want to get some of those, get those ordered. But they're going to be in all the national publications and trade journals and online social media. They've been pretty well received. The other piece, we have this number on here changed. I just found out this morning that we're down to about 3 of the RPs of this left in stock here, and HVLP sold out. And so we don't have any here at Dan-Am. You may have already ordered these in, but this was the SATA Jet X 5500 Future gun we released just before SEMA. When you see it in person, the green is beautiful. So if you got these in stock, don't be afraid to take them out and show them to your shops. They're an amazing looking spray gun. And if you don't have any in your distribution yet, many of the warehouse distributors did place orders, or call and get the last few of the RPs that are left. And those are also limited in size from 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4 in both O's and I's. This one was pretty popular at the show. We're seeing a huge influx of young lady painters and lady painters in this industry. But what they did was, a number of years ago, 2016, we did a lady edition mini jet, and it was really, really well received. However, they didn't make as many. So this year, being 2022, and recognizing the ladies in our industry, they made 2,022 of these for the world. We got 150 of them for the USA. The laser engraving is really pretty nice on these. It's got jewels built into the handle. It comes with a cup, where normally the mini jet doesn't come with a cup. It's black anodized, and it's got the lady edition lasered into the cup. And it comes with that case you see in the background. So a display case that the gun and cup lay in, or you can carry it or transport it. But it's blacked out controls. So normally a mini jet, as I said, is $575. This one is I think $795 is the price, so it's about $200 increase on this mini jet. But that includes a $120 cup and a carrying case and all of the extra work it took to do this. It's got a great color. People really responded well to it at the SEMA show. And again, it's only available in one part number, so you'll see that part number on this screen. That's in a 1.2 SR only. Now that was the end of the filtration portion. Certainly, if anybody has any questions, let's ask them. And then if you want to see more about the breathing equipment, or you have questions on that, I have that here so we can do more. But I just wanted to wait and ask questions, see if anybody had any before we say goodbye today.
I don't have any yet, but guys, if you want to ask questions, please do. And I will follow up after the presentation and send everybody your contact information. I'm sure they have it, but I'll send that as well, so they can follow up you directly if they need to.
Well, it's an important part, getting the shop air clean, and not having canisters on some of the filters that are out there that rust themselves together and don't provide clean air for the painter to breathe and spray. We have a distinct advantage in that. So we would hope that this becomes a better focus for everybody.
Well, they're saying you did a great job.
Thank you. Most of you probably have my number. Call me if you have any questions, or just let Melissa know, and we'll try and answer those individually. Otherwise, hope everybody has an amazing Thanksgiving, and thanks for logging in.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. We really appreciate your time today, and thanks, everybody. And we did record it, so I'll send it out, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. And I'll follow up with everybody. Take care.